expensive though, aren't they?
We're $500. It's £250 a night, $300 a night, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. I think we are live. If anyone is there, do say hi. I'm just going to check, see if we're coming through live and clear. Hopefully we are live. If not, then I've got to figure it out. So if you're here, okay, so I'm live on Facebook. Am I live on the thing? I'm not really too sure. We're about to find out if we're actually live on Facebook as well. But I am actually live on YouTube. Oh yeah, I can see us. I can think we are live. So that's good. And if I can just have a quick look here. Okay, so this says it's going to start in a minute. So we shall see. But obviously, like, we're just going to go live. We'll give it like 5 minutes, then we'll actually get starting. So if anyone's joining, welcome. Do drop us a hi down below. And then obviously we can just do that. So I believe we're live on Facebook and on YouTube. And I've got a good friend with myself. Friend, who are you? What's your name, may I ask?
Hey, what's up, guys? Yeah, I'm Gavin, seven-figure seller, OA and wholesale. I abandoned the UK market in looking for better money.
Fine, cool. So if you don't know, I'm here today with a good friend of mine, Gavin Sweeney, and actually we are both coming live from Mexico City, talking about all things Amazon UK, USA. If you want to know, we've both, obviously, you can probably tell by the accent, we are both from the UK, but also as well the fact that we have both actually sold in the UK and in the USA. Gavin, you didn't actually hit 7 figures in the UK. Like, how close were you to 7 figures?
About 40k off. I love it. That was a good talking point for you.
You did a £960,000 in the UK, and then you stopped. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but hey, fair play to you. Like, you didn't get to the point where you felt like you had to do the 7 figures as like a vanity metric. I think that's a really interesting point. So, I say that because I think also if people are watching, while you've done 7 figures in the US, you've also done as a very significant, next to 7 figures in the UK as well. So I think, the reason why I've asked you to come join me today is the fact that you guys, you understand both the UK and the USA marketplace, and you can obviously talk about that. I've got a couple of people just coming in. So if I just kind of drop down, we've got Tom A. has popped in and said hi. Hi, Tom A. Mozzie, I don't know if I can pronounce that. Can you please provide the wholesale list? I'm struggling with the brands. We can maybe talk about that later. Obviously, Gavin, I know, does a bit of wholesale as well. Hi, Gavin. Hi, Thomas.
Providing any wholesale list, just saying.
Like Jones's Wholesale or something like that. Or, what's the big ones in the US? Always forget the name. What does everyone use?
You need for gating, you can just use away websites. It doesn't have to be wholesale.
I know, it's really interesting, isn't it? Facebook user, I think that's Andrew James Shaw. Hey, Andrew James Shaw says hi. So hi. And then we've got some other things. There's a lot of obviously kind of people coming in. So Zaina, I think it is. I'm not too sure. Frustrating, talking about RB Source again. No leads, nothing. So obviously, if you guys are here, we'll kind of get started in a couple of minutes. We've got some people started on the YouTube, which is great. We've got some people on the Facebook, so I'll just say thank you. And I did actually put a shout out to some people on Instagram, which I thought was quite good. Gavin, I tagged you on Instagram. I was like, woohoo! So yeah, Gavin mentioned me in the story. Loved it. So obviously today, if you want to know, we're going to be talking about Amazon UK versus USA. We'll give it like a minute or two to get started. So to come in and we're not going to answer this question straight away, but I think it's a really good one. Which is better to start, USA or UK? And I think this is a really good question. We will come to this. So I think we'll talk about both that kind of question around if you're a UK national and you're looking to sell in the UK like Gavin and I are, like what does that mean? And then also if you're a USA national, maybe looking the other way, or perhaps maybe you're someone who is not even part of any of this, like that would be quite interesting to know, to see like how well, or like what, if you're outside of the UK or USA, what would work best for them. That I think would be a really good point as well. So just kind of like understanding there, and obviously we'll share that. So if you guys have got questions, do drop them down below. We're obviously going to be able to do this. Gavin, where are you at the moment, may I ask, like in the world?
I'm in Mexico City in a place called Condesa.
And why do you bring you there? Like, obviously, why are you not in the US? Why are you not in the UK? Tell me about that.
Well, the US I'm only just allowed in. The UK, mate, the UK is just too cold. Screw that country.
It's quite warm right now.
I was speaking to Seth earlier. He said it was just finished raining.
Oh.
So I'm not sure.
That's all right. Well, hey, if you want to both know, we are both in Mexico City. And this weekend, where are we both looking to go, Gavin?
Acapulco?
Acapulco. We're going to dance it 1980s style Acapulco. Hashtag excited, looking for that.
I don't get
really good.
Do you mean by 1980s style?
I don't know, like it's like back in the 80s or 90s or something. Acapulco was massive. So yeah, someone says it's been pissing it down all day. I think that's Nick Hickman on the so no change there. What have we got? We've got hi both. I think that's Rich Slater said hi both. Thanks for doing this. Looking forward to it. Rich, Nick, if you guys have got a question, Andrew, please just drop them down below. Like honestly, any questions you've got, like you want us to answer, like we'll try and really give you as much information as we can about what we've learned and the way we've seen it, and like the differences between the two, two marketplace, which I think is going to be really interesting because there is a difference between them, and we've definitely seen that, and I think a lot of people are considering it, and basically like as Denzi said right now, is it better to start in the UK or USA? And I think that's a really important point. So I think for us, let's just kind of get started. If anyone hasn't just joined us, let's just kind of do a little bit of background and just say where we're coming from. So Gavin, first things first, do you want to introduce yourself, tell a little bit about yourself, and like kind of your selling history so far?
Cool. So yeah, I'm a 7-figure seller. I ran the UK up to 960k revenue. Then I abandoned ship straight to the USA, and then started selling shoes. Those shoes were doing like 1.5 mil a year on that. Also in February, started wholesale. In wholesale last month, we did 150k revenue, and this month we're going to be pushing closer to 200k. So I guess combined revenue between both companies is about 250 to 300k.
My God, man on fire.
So
absolutely
experienced now. I've been in the game as well for like 3.5 years. Started as a broke boy with like 1.5k and grinded like a madman.
Cool. No, I like that. I think that's really good. Like, yeah, and if anyone wants to know, I've done interviews with Gavin, and Gavin was the kind of guy who lived in London, got on the tube with hands full of printers to like going to the shops doing RA effectively. So I think that was a really interesting point. So I think for you, like the reason why I kind of say this is because you've done both marketplaces and you definitely are a hustler. I never deny that. So if anyone doesn't know who I am, my name is Thomas Parkinson. I also live in Mexico City right now with Gavin. That's where we both are. And what else are we doing? We are, I've been selling, I think it's 6 years now. It just kind of eludes me. Last year we did like 3 million in the UK, but I've actually closed that down now. We're in the process of selling it down. And in the US, not as much as Gavin, probably like 1.5, I'd say 1.3, 1.5. We're not huge. And actually we've reduced down the team size slightly. And the reason is we can actually, we found some of our sources, we can actually go deeper on products rather than having more sources, and that worked really well. So we're now looking at becoming more profitable as a company, and that's something that we're really doing. So and obviously I run my Amazon US business and I run Fast Track FBA, so hence why you guys probably obviously are here today watching us, listening to this. So thank you very much for joining. So let's kind of jump through. So let's just talk about the so I think the real question is, let's kind of do pros and cons first of all. So like if someone right now is thinking, and I'm sure that a lot of people right now are going to be UK based, let's just talk about what are the pros, Gavin, of selling in the UK versus selling in the USA. Let me ask that question.
Okay. The UK's cost of home, right, is comfort. The taxes is going to be easier to understand. You'll have a bigger community of people doing it in the UK, and like there's less risk. If you drop 20 grand on products in America, you can't send that back to your place to sell on eBay. It's in a different country. In UK, you can do that. So the USA is way more riskier, but the UK is less riskier, bigger community, or at least you'll connect with these people a lot better because they're from the same country as you, right? Maybe you go to like meetups and stuff like that. Like as a new seller in the UK, you don't get a VAT register straight away, so you have an edge over every other more experienced seller, right? Because they will be VAT registered, so their margins have been lower than yours. So I think in terms of getting momentum, the UK is just a lot quicker to get started up. And you'll also know a whole bunch of products, retail websites, retail shops in person. So I think the UK is more of a comfort thing, and it allows you to build momentum and get some good skills.
Fine. Yeah, I think on reflection for me, looking about it, I think number one, creating a company is a lot easier. If you're a UK national, you can literally go on to Company's House right now and create a company for £12. And it takes 10 minutes, for example. You can literally start trading probably the next day. USA, doing it as a foreign national is a lot harder. It takes a lot longer. You've got to do all the right documentation, and I don't know this for a fact, but what I saw was the fact that as a foreign national myself, things just took longer. Admittedly, I did it during COVID; it took quite a long time, but you can speed it up. So, number one, speed of incorporation is a lot quicker. Number two, banking's cheaper. I find USA banking sometimes has costs involved. I have a Chase Bank account that's $15 a month I have to pay, so that's a bit cheaper. The other big kind of things that I look at as well are even little things where it's kind of the cost of doing business. Everything's just a lot more expensive. We talked about prep costs. My prep costs in the US right now are about $2.12 per unit, by the way. That's a lot of cash. In the UK, we're talking 50p, which is 70 cents. That's a very big difference. My accountancy fees are a lot higher. In the UK, I was paying £230 for only $1 million a year business or $3 million a year business. In the US, I'm paying $1,000 per month. And admittedly, I have both of them are e-commerce specialist accountants. So I'm paying a bit more, but that does have an impact. And then I think the other one also as well is things like shipping times. In the UK, you buy something today, it could arrive to the prep center if you're doing it right and you live in London or close to London, same day, but it'll probably arrive within 2 or 3 days, for example, maybe 5 at best. In the US right now, my average shipping time is 19 days to get it shipped from the supplier into my warehouse and out to Amazon. 19 days is horrendous. And so everything just takes a lot longer, and that causes a lot more, cost to be involved. And also as well, less of my capital is being worked in Amazon itself. So things take a lot longer. And I find that in myself. So, even when we talk about the suppliers, sometimes the suppliers will be okay, cool. Thank you for your order. We're getting it ready to prepare. They won't ship it for 5 days. It's what the hell are you doing? It just takes a really, really long time. So
that's so true.
Yeah, and it's
shipping can take forever.
And then I think the other one, and by the way, guys, if you've got questions, please drop them down below. We're just going to kind of do an introduction section, then do Q&A afterwards. So the other one I'd also do is cancelled orders. In the UK, you generally don't really get cancelled orders. In the US, it's just non-stop cancellations. Boots, for example, in the UK, yeah, they just don't like resellers. I get that. But in the USA, you can order one pair of sneakers and they'll just cancel it. They're sorry, IP address is a bit different. Don't like it. Thank you very much. Bye. Or VPN. Or card is too new. Or 9 times out of 10, it's we're not going to even tell you. So that's a really common reason.
I think for the first 1 month or maybe 2 months, our cancellation rate was 90%. It was insane. We had to call every single supplier non-stop to try and get them to whitelist us. But as you said, because you're using a VPN, that's probably far away from your prep center address, or your billing address is in a different state than your prep center address. These all get flagged. The security for American retail shops is mental.
Yeah.
We had to change our billing address on our card to our prep center. Then we had to use a VPN that's right next to the prep center or come up with a different solution.
Yeah.
You got to appear as normal and as human as possible.
No, I really understand. So I think that also as well, just the cost of getting started, doing all a lot easier. Also as well, the other one pro of UK versus USA is if you are a UK resident, for example, and you want to get started, you already have a credit rating in the UK. And the net result of that is the fact that accessing capital, even business capital, is so much easier because they can just check your personal credit rating. Whereas if you are trying to start as a UK national in the USA, your other problem is the fact that you don't have a credit rating, and also though you don't even live in the country. So if anything goes wrong, they have no comeback. You have no house, they can't come after you legally because you're not even in the country. So it's a lot. You've got to build up that credit rating from day one, which takes a lot longer to do. So accessing capital is a bigger issue, and as a result, I always say you need more capital to start in the USA than in the UK. Gavin, anything else on the pro side?
It took 2 years of having that USA business before we got offered an Amex business credit card. 2 years it took to get one.
Let me ask you a question. You have an Amex business card now. Is it a charge card or a credit card?
It's business platinum, so I charge.
Charge, fine. So I've got a credit card, and we have a whopping, after 2 years, by the way, and we do over $1 million in sales, $13,400 worth. Yeah.
It's just not enough, is it? It's not.
By the way, I asked for 20,000, and they were like, "We'll give you 13." I was like, "Oh, thank you."
But if he was like an American citizen, 20 years old, never had a job, here's 50 grand.
Easy, very easy.
Well,
The
thing is, because we don't live in America, like, how did they come after us if something goes really wrong? Like, the risk for them for accepting high credit allowances for non-US residents is really high.
Yeah.
So it's just not in their best interest to give us high loans and stuff like that.
No, I really agree. Right, guys, if you've got questions, drop them down below. We're going to go through the cons of the UK, then we'll jump over to some questions and answer them for you guys. So, question for you. So we talked about the pros. What about now the cons of the UK versus USA? This is where Gavin jumps into his element. He's like, basically, why is the USA better than the UK?
Party time, no.
Why did you leave the UK? Tell me about that. Like, why did you choose to jump ship?
The UK just has way more competition relative to other markets. And I think that's in relation because, like, the UK market, everyone speaks English. In America, where Amazon is massive, everyone speaks English. So for you to get information, you can look at Americans and see what they're doing and then transfer that. A market like Germany, for example, would not have that because it's all in German. So maybe not all of these people speak English. So you're going to have an edge over there. If you do speak English, you can look at these YouTube videos, right? But for the UK, I think that just makes it a bit worse. The sales velocity in the UK on a sales rank basis compared to America is so much worse. Like a 10K sales rank in the UK might sell like 100 per month or 150. In the US, that's at least 1,000 a month.
Probably 10,000.
Yeah, probably 10,000. Like,
I've seen those. You look at them like, what?
Yeah, like I did a test buy on our wholesale. We bought like 400 units, like 7.5 grand's worth. I was like, okay, this should last about a month. It was like a 7K BSR, and it sold in 3 days. I'm like, what? I can't get any more, unfortunately. And that's just the thing. Everything sells way more in the US. In the UK, things sell comparatively far slower, but the competition is still really high. So you'll have these ASINs that have like 50 sellers, right? Or you see the sales go up to 50, but it only sells 50 a month as well. And if everyone buys 5 units per month, then it's going to tank. Another thing is, there's less niches in the UK market. There's less and don't get me wrong, there will be some very unique niches that you can find, but compared to the UK that has the volume there, it's just so different, which is why a lot of people in the UK do like beauty, toys, electricals, that kind of stuff. In the USA, you could make a niche of doing dishwasher parts. So it's like, if you can do a niche of dishwasher parts and still do more revenue than you do in the UK doing something like beauty. So the opportunity in the UK is just not as much. What else? I think that's what it comes down to, really. And then you have the VAT issue, right? So a VAT seller is competing with a non-VAT seller. You can't compete for the same margins if you've got the same buy price. They will always get a better price. And then to add to that, the paying VAT messes up your cash flow as well. It adds another layer of complexity to your ROI and margins. And really, like, a 30% ROI on UK versus USA is actually different. So in the UK, you'll pay the VAT. So even though you've got the same ROI, your margin will be different because you owe VAT, which that took some time to get my head around.
I think, yeah, like coming back to it, so if I kind of talk about the negative sides of the UK versus the US, obviously, like the US has a lot bigger sales volume. That's one of the interesting things. I think, we're a lot more, like, what's interesting is the fact that even, I remember looking at the other day, there was a product whereby if you look at the sales rank, it's probably selling, the drops count method. It's probably 10, 15 units per month, for example. So we bought like 10 units, for example. But what we didn't realize is that actually for that product, people were buying 5s and 10s in one go. So we sold out in 3 orders. Someone brought 3, 7, 5, and we just sold out. It was like, whoa, actually one of those, like this product, yeah, it had 5 10 sales, but each sale was like 10 units. Each unit was like 60-70%. And we see that actually quite a lot. Like maybe not the 10, like 7 sales per drop, should we say, but we do see the much higher ROIs. And I do look at that in regards to like the sales velocity, the 19 days, that I talked about. That's a real pain. It does take longer to turn stock, but we also see much higher ROIs on it. And the other one is that when the listings start crashing, we can also say, actually, because generally the listings are selling more, we can actually hold, we can actually wait, and like you can probably wait for that price to recover. I've seen it many times whereby right now it's selling at 0 to 20% ROI. We've waited 2 weeks and it's gone back up to 60. I'm like, whoa, this is like incredible. But you see it, so many sellers, and you still have the stupidity where they are actually just going down to 0, but down to 0% ROI. But we see that. So I think that's a really interesting point. Number one, the sales volume. And when you see those listings where it's like 10,000 units per month, you're like, this is crazy. I do really understand what you mean about the VAT side, is the competition. There is a competitive advantage you can make in the USA, which is around prep centers or where your prep center is located. So if we talk about sales tax, for example, which is kind of like VAT, but within the US, sales tax is based on where you're shipping the items to. So say, for example, if you ship your items to Delaware, one of the sales tax states, even if you're not a Delaware company, you will not be paying VAT. You will be paying, you won't be paying sales tax because the destination is a 0% sales tax state, which can have a massive impact over someone who's maybe in Florida, who's got a 6% sales tax. I think it is. Don't quote me on the Florida. But that makes a really big impact on your ability to, compete against other people and be more profitable. And like we've even talked about it many times, whereby sellers in Florida who are prepping themselves, it would actually be cheaper for them to ship it to a prep center in Delaware and do it that way, which I find absolutely fascinating. So that's like another big area. And then the other one I'd just say is like the one thing which I remember last year, I did £3 million in sales. Tim, who we know, which is Saros, he did £10 million in sales on sneakers. And if you want to know, so he did 3 times the revenue that I did, but I actually did more sales than him unit-wise. But why did he make more money than me? And obviously, generally, the more money you make, the more profit you make. It's because the cost, everything you're buying in the US just generally costs more. Like, and as a result, like he made way more sales because his average unit sale price was so much higher. Buying things in the US where you're selling them for 50, 60, 70, $100, $200 is actually quite common. I'm buying stuff where we buy them for $100 and sell it for 400. But I think that's really like we see that all the time, and that just really makes it a lot easier, because in order to spend your money, you don't actually have to spend as much because everything just costs a lot more. What are your thoughts on that, Gavin?
Yeah, absolutely. And that makes things a lot more operationally simple, right? Because there's more work selling 50,000 units than there is selling 1,000 units. Right? And that makes reconciliation, all this kind of stuff, just so much easier. But then what I noticed in the UK as well is like so much of my shipments always go missing. The logistics seems way worse. Like the prep center was always losing stuff, no matter what prep center I use. They always lose everything. But then on the US, it just doesn't seem to happen at the same level. It's just all manageable. Whereas on the UK, I was making so much money through like missing stock.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the other interesting one, there's some, because the US is a bigger marketplace, there's a lot more kind of software and services that only cater. Inventory Labs, for example, is a really good tool that works in the US only. If you're going to talk about, I think, when we even talk about reclaim software, it's like there's some really good ones which are US only, but they charge you 10% to do it all. Whereas if you use the one in the US, they're 25%, or the UK, or outside the US, they're 25%. So just like interesting enough, there is less cost of doing business, but there's a lot of stuff which is only US focus, which sometimes is really beneficial and sometimes which is really annoying, because you're like, I want to do my UK business and grow that. But I do like what I will say, and guys, I will just say drop a question down below, because I'll kind of wrap up in the kind of like feedback here, then we'll jump onto some questions. But what I will say is like, I'm not trying to say that the UK is awful and it's bad. Like, it depends where you are. And I think, Gavin, the question I want to ask you is like, at what point should you be thinking about, at what stage should you sell in the UK versus in the US if you are, should we say, a UK resident? Can I ask that question?
Yeah, so if you're already a very experienced seller, you've got a team, you've been doing like a certain niche for a while, but now your niche is kind of ended, then you're at a point, do you want to find a new niche in the UK market, or do you want to move over to USA? I think that's where I look at it. Because if you're already making like loads of money, you got like a 10-15% net margin on the UK, and you're spending all of your money, why would you move to USA if you have capital issues already? So if you already have a successful business, or you're spending your money, and you're happy with the life that you have, I wouldn't say take that extra risk. But if you're not spending all of your money, your niche is getting tanked heavily, then you can make a decision if you want to make the switch. Because the reality is you're moving to an entirely new market. It's going to be so much work. And are you willing to go back to the grind, like working like 6 to 10 hours per day for the next few months until you understand the market? And I think that's what a lot of people forget. Then if you're a new seller, so I don't recommend it for new sellers in most cases, because if you're getting started on USA, you are basically all in. Like, but your fees, everything's going to be way more expensive. You're going to need a lot of money as well. Like, you need to start with like minimum 20 or 30K, but I would suggest even more ideally, because everything's more expensive. The lead time is a lot longer. Whereas in the UK, you can churn your products around way quicker. So if you got no issues spending your money and your margin is good, there is no point changing.
Yeah, and I think also as well, like the idea is that because your access to capital, like let's be real. When people sell on Amazon, they start with like $1,000, $5,000, fine, pounds, whatever. But that isn't it. Like, yeah, they reinvest profits, of course, but it's not like they get to 7 figures. You know, we didn't get to 7 figures just by starting with 5,000 and nothing else. No, we got to 7 figures because we started with 5,000, proved it, started turning that. Then we used other people's money, you know, credit cards, Amazon loans, other loans, etc. We used a lot of that capital. And if you're going to go start in like USA, you don't have access to that capital for probably probably years, if that makes sense. So like, you need to kind of, it's kind of like you need to bring all the money with you when you start in the USA. You can't kind of like go, oh, I'll start with a small amount and then build it up and access credit cards. It just doesn't happen. It's not, that's the biggest problem that you face. But I think if you're in the UK, like, and you know, if you are looking at getting started, you know, if you're just starting on Amazon, I think definitely do USK, not a problem. But if you've already got a successful business in the UK and you're ready to look at something else, or you're like, look, I do want to move over and I've got a significant sum of cash, then that's going to be helpful for you. Like that, USA can be a good option. Thoughts, Gavin?
Exactly. Like if you have a mentor, then the USA is absolutely fine to jump straight into. So I imagine you're paying for it, you probably got a lot more capital that you want to spend. That's why you want to learn it a lot quicker, right? But if capital is slim, and as you said, if the business is profitable, don't just end it. Like when you go to the USA, you are all in. You are absolutely all in. So it's going to cost you a few thousand in setup fees, then the long lead times, any other issues. In fact, even getting your tax return done in America is like almost $1,500. Like everything's so much more expensive. And you have no, as you said, you have no credit cards. You basically have like no help. So you need that capital to keep yourself going until you can get credit cards and get that help. Whereas in the UK, you can leverage all sorts of different credits, loans, all this kind of stuff. So the momentum that you can build in the UK with smaller capital is way quicker than that in America.
Yeah, fine. What I will just say is we'll jump over to questions now, but guys, if you do want to know, I did actually record my entire setup process, and I recorded this into a course. It's about 20 videos plus extra videos. So we talk about how we get over cancelled orders, everything that I did, ITIN, EINs, corporation tax structures. I explain all the tax structures. I explain the prep center. I explain everything we're talking about and a lot more. It's exactly what I did in my business to set up. And this is still all relevant today. We've actually just updated updated all the cancelled orders, and also talked about credit cards and how we do that as well. If you are interested, you can get 50% off literally during this call. There's a link up above. It's fasttrackfba.com/USA50. Just literally type that into your browser and you can grab, it's going to be about $50. Normally it's $100, now it's $50. You can grab that, and that's literally, you'll have that, and we'll update that as we go through. So if you are looking at, want to get it, or maybe not right now, but maybe like in the future, you're like, hey, I probably want to do it in a couple of months time, get the course today. So fasttrackfba.com/USA50, and the guide, and that's going to literally is step-by-step guide of everything you need to do to get yourself set up in the USA. We talk about all the incorporation agents, where to incorporate yourself, how to do it, tax implications, all of that, and explain it. So fasttrackfba.com/USA50, you can grab that. So do grab that. Okay, so let's jump over to some questions, Gavin. So if you guys have got questions, do drop them down below. So I'm going to have to kind of come through. I'm just going to kind of skim through. I'm just having a little look now. A couple of people talking about, like, obviously we talked about this earlier on. It's raining in the UK. So obviously I do understand that one. So here's a good question. If you are thinking about getting started in the USA, categories, thoughts, Gavin?
Not shoes, which is what I do because it's too stressful. I don't like shoes that much.
Why not?
Because the return rate is about 20%.
Yeah, it's insanely high. And there's some other things about it as well. What about like gift cards and everything about that? Tell me about that?
Gift card fraud. Yeah. Oh yeah, there's a lot of fraud in America for OA as well, and more specifically around shoes. So like, you might buy a shoe for like a buy price of $50, you get it 20% off for $40. Somebody else comes along with like a fraudulent gift card, they get it at $20. So that's something you have to be careful from, which is why we only do shoes from like local small shops that you can get elsewhere.
Yeah, I think
like beauty is pretty good. Would be a good place to start, but again, like the UK, the beauty is quite volatile. But I'd imagine you are already fairly experienced as a seller if you think about moving. So. Like, and this is why I go back to the 6 to 10 hours a day. You have to grind and find a niche for yourself. Like, if I just tell you where to start, you might not make as much money as if you just started on your own and didn't take my advice and worked it out yourself. Like, the real money comes from the struggle, and me telling you where to go and how to start. That can like give you like a more profitable business, right?
If I go to give you an example, the products that we find the most profit on are products that I can't even tell you what they actually are. Like, it's kind of like a wire with some bits, and I'm like, what is that? And I have to research it to figure out what it is. It's like, okay, it's like it's something like really random, or it's like a dishwasher salt tablet. You're like, okay. It was like a commercial one that like really weird. So there's loads of these things, and the categories are massive. But again, you're trying to look for like your edge. You're trying to find that. That's something really important. But like sneakers, I think definitely everyone kind of talks about. But I think you need to be two things. They look great on the front end, but you get massive return rates. Sneakers have a higher cost for return. There's an additional cost on top of the return. And then in addition to that is a lot of new starters will start on sneakers. So not only do you buy it thinking you're going to get a 40% ROI, and when you actually sell it, you're only getting like a 20%, maybe 15%. And then what you're getting is the fact that you get a return rate on top. And then maybe if you get 15, you're okay. But the competition have already got a discount card so that you're now break even and they're still making money. So just be mindful of that. It does happen. Gavin, you're a wholesaler. Oh, go on.
And your competition doesn't necessarily know what they're doing either, because Tom said, so many beginners start shoes and they have no idea what they're doing. They'll lower the ROI down to like a 10% on their reprice or whatever, and they're just losing money. But they have no idea because they can't read the data and all the return that's coming in.
Yeah.
So it's like,
no, I agree.
It's definitely more challenging, and it requires way more money to start shoes. Like, you're spending like 50. Yeah, go on.
Go on. You can finish it off. I'll go jump you.
Well, for the shoes, you're spending like what, $50 to $100 per shoe. So if you buy 10, that's almost $1,000 spent already. So the amount of capital that you need is way more. Also, customers have 60 days to return shoes back to you. That means if you have 100 returns, the money for those returns is held up to 60 days. So your cash flow is going to be way slower doing shoes, because all your money disappears in returns.
especially if you're running at like 25% return rate, that that has a really big impact.
15 to 20%.
Yeah. Let's kind of jump through profit margins, wholesale versus OA. Gavin, talk me through that. And it's all this is very speculative. Like, it's very specific on what you're selling. Like Amazon Lit, they do grocery, and their margins will be a lot lower than like what someone doing maybe electricals is doing, for example, high value electricals.
Yeah, and I think this is the thing. Like, it doesn't matter if you're doing wholesale or OA. It just depends on what niche you're in, what products you found, and how you analyze graphs. That's what it boils down to at the end. Wholesaling is just greater access to buying in large quantities, right? So if I say I want $20,000 of one ASIN, then I'm going to get a much better price than someone who's buying like 20 units of a website. And that's the strength of the wholesale. The strength of wholesale is in the buying power and the exclusivity of the deals as well. Like, I had a conversation with a wholesaler recently. It's like, okay, from now on, we can start taking this offline, as in like on WhatsApp, is what it meant, sorry. And I'll just DM you like what deals I have, because not all of the deals go on the website or go on leads lists. We keep a lot of it like offline. So I'll message you, see if you like them. If you want, maybe you can take them all. And I guess that's the great thing about buying all of the wholesalers deals as well. By buying more of a quantity, you reduce the quantity from the market, and then you have higher margins yourself.
Yeah, I'd even say in our business, like there's one supplier we're dealing with right now. Like, we have a lot of conversations with them because some of the orders get cancelled, or like it's not because of IP, but it's like anything else. But we're like going back to them, going, "Can we have discount? Can we have this?" And like they're like, "Do you guys just want to create a trade account and we'll do it?" Or like they're coming to us. So, like, it's quite interesting. So, but again, like there's more volume to sell, so you're willing to buy more. Like, you're always wanting to buy because like we're sold out. Like, it's like crazy. So just question for you. So Gavin, we both do the same structure. We're remote. We travel, don't we? We're both nomadic. Source, prep, ship to Amazon. That's right. You do prep center. You're not handling goods yourself. Is that right?
What, in my Mexican flat? I'm definitely not shipping from Mexico. No, I don't even know how the customs would work for that. Yeah, everything's remote.
You've definitely got some vitamins, though. I know that one for a fact. Gavin ordered them to my apartment.
Tom's having a delivery house address, because I always switch Airbnbs, but Tom's stable.
Shipping the drugs to my house. Dr. Noor, love it. Hey. Facebook user, what's your experience of price tanking in the USA versus UK? Tell me a bit about that.
Right. Things in the US will definitely price tank, sometimes way harder than UK. But the thing is, it has the sales velocity to recover. So patience is rewarded. In the UK, if it tanks, you might be waiting 8 months. In the USA, you might be just waiting 1 or 2. And I think that's probably like one of the biggest differences. Like, the recovery speed of listings in America is just fantastic. But I think the offer count as well is still less than many UK offer count listings. I think the offer count is still less than the UK, which is quite strange. But the challenge with the UK...
Listings in the UK?
No, comparative, look at the same types of items, the offer count will be higher on the UK with slower sales than on America with faster sales. You have a lower offer count. But everyone in the UK uses the same websites.
Yeah, I'd probably say I'd probably agree to a certain extent. Like, I would disagree slightly. Like, I would disagree with the fact that when I'm looking at listings, I probably see anywhere between like 6 and 15 sellers as quite normal in the US. But one of the real metrics we look at is the amount of FBA stock on the listing relative to the listing sales. And in the UK, the metric we look at is if it's more than 3 months, we're not going anywhere near it. And the close, if it's like 2.5 months, we're a bit scared. If it's only 1 month of stock, say for example there's 30 units of stock and it's selling 30 units per month on the listing, then we're like, that's 1 month worth of stock, fine. So we would see a lot of listings way under 30, probably closer to the 1 month, whereas in the UK we might see maybe between 5 and 10 sellers, but regularly it would be over 3 months worth of stock.
Okay, but here's the counter argument to this.
Go on.
You're reviewing that in the UK, yeah, sure. Then you buy it and the offer count is like 1 billion. So it's
agreed. I know.
What you see mostly, right? And this is the thing, like, the stock count is great and all, but it doesn't tell you like fulfillment, transfer, inbound stock, all this other stuff. So it is missing a lot of data points. But like in terms of like the increase of the offer count, like it seems to be so much more drastic in the UK than it is in the US.
I've seen some crazy ones in the US, honestly. I've seen like literally like it's selling like 20 units a month and it's gone to 100. It's like, whoa, that's hit some like, yeah, I've seen it. That's where it hit some like, Discord server with 1,000 people in it. It's gone mental.
Yeah.
It does happen. So I think, look, just to summarize, experience with price tracking in the US, they both have them. Generally is because the US has higher sales velocity. It doesn't last as long. I can literally see it on the graph. Like I've seen it even when we've reviewed it on the more slowing selling items. It's like, man, just wait 2 weeks and it's going to go back up like 40% ROI, like from like 10% to 40%. I'm like, it's incredible. And I kind of just sit there and go, why are people people crashing it? It's just stupid, but it's the reprices.
Give me 1 minute.
That's all right. Let's kind of go through. So who does your prep in the USA and how much do you pay per unit? So I'm not going to give you my prep center because they are like gold dust. But what I will say is we do give prep centers in the USA course. So I give you some good prep centers there. You can see that. So I recommend some good prep centers in there. And that's if you are willing to buy it. If you do want to get that, I will share that in there. But I don't share them publicly because I've been caught out on that one before. But number 2, price per unit, anywhere between about $1.50 up to, I pay about $2.20 right now, $2.16, I think it is. That's the price that we pay all in. It's a lot more expensive, but the quality of the prep is so much better. They're on it, like they're constantly WhatsApping me any problems, taking pictures, like same day stuff comes in. The service standards of the good ones are really good, and we've been caught on the bad ones. So I hope that kind of gives you an idea of what we're getting. So Carlos, that makes sense. Scott, how do you deal with returns in USA, particularly like shoes that are torn, worn? Well, obviously, if you buy it from the supplier, your prep center will deal with that, and you can just ship it back to the supplier. If it comes from like the customer, generally there's not really much you can do because the very nature of it is the fact that your customer is the one. It's like it's the same in the UK. Like if Amazon will be like, oh, the customer returned it, customer damage, sorry, you've got to pay. So that's going to be like a really hard thing to kind of like try and get overcome. But like there's not really much you can do about that. So returning those. Some people have. I have no idea what Gavin's doing.
Sorry.
I don't know if I can. Oh my god. Definitely.
Sorry about that, I'm back.
Definitely just heard all of that, Gavin. It was like, gracias. Da, 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 da. I was like, what are you up to?
Absolutely nothing, Tom.
Let's
say Google Translate.
Google Translate, exactly. Your Spanish is perfecto. So, how did you get on with VPN close to US? And by the way, we talk about this in the USA course, by the way, exactly how we do the VPN for overcoming cancelled orders and how you want to think about it. So what about you, Gavin? VPN, like any advice on that? Like what happened to you?
I'm not sharing my strategy, but Tom has his right strategy as well. So just buy his course. It's like $50. If you're moving over to the USA to start from the UK and you can't afford $50, then you should not be on USA.
Yeah, I think like long story short, cancelled orders in the US are a lot more like they really look at VPNs massively. They will cancel very, very quickly. Number 2, they look at around like where you're coming from, even the types of VPN. Like we've flicked between different VPNs and we've seen some a lot more successful than others. Locations of VPNs, there's a lot of factors in overcoming cancelled orders and how we do that. We've even gone down the route of like residential VPNs and like understood like how that works. Should we say, because there's certain ones that you can get where you're the only user on it. But it is a really big contributing factor towards overcoming cancelled orders. And that's like, like Gavin said, like 90% of what he got. And I would probably agree with that. Like at least 60%, 50% we got were cancelled. It was like a right pain, absolute pain. But getting the right VPN set up along with everything else is a very key consideration in it.
The first month was so stressful. The first month of starting USA was just so stressful.
Yeah, and I think, like, by the way, you want to give up, don't you? Because it's like, why am I doing this? Like, I can't get any orders through. Oh, so I will say 2 things. Number 1, you want to give up, but I think you mentioned it earlier, whereby you said you've got to be in the grind, and the grind is like, I'm doing this to make money, like, and I'm willing to go through the suck. But I think the other one, question for you, Gavin, why did you create an LLC? Why did you do that way? Why did you not just trade from your UK business?
Because you need a USA billing address. If you don't have a USA billing address, because then you will get more cancellations. In fact, most payment providers in the US don't even accept a UK billing address.
Non-US billing address.
Yeah, that's what. So they don't accept international billing addresses. So then you can't order from those websites unless you're flat out lying. So it's like, and they can tell from your card, I think. So yeah, we had to make a USA company.
Yeah, I've known a lot of people who started selling in the USA from their UK business. And by the way, the UK business would have like an international billing address, or they would have a card which could pay in dollars, like Capital on Tap, the zero conversion. Just doesn't work because because USA companies will not even let you put in a non-US billing address. It's like no, not going to happen. So I just kind of share that with you now. Niels said, funny that you mentioned I'm selling in Germany and I can confirm that it's not as competitive as the UK. Interesting. I love that. And by the way, I was having a conversation with a really big USA wholesaler, over 10 million a year, about that exact question. What Gavin, the question for you, why didn't you go into the EU? Why USA?
Because where is the most money? The most money is America. So where am I going to be? America. Simple as that.
Right.
Oh my God.
I think the real question comes is like there is a lot of money in everywhere. Even in the UK, there's a lot of money in the UK. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. But it's each to their own. But I think Neil, fantastic for you for doing Germany. I'd love to obviously connect and see how you're getting on with that. So well done, like absolutely love it. Let's go through. So someone's saying about struggling to find products on Amazon. That's a classic one. Gavin, I'm sure you'd say you just got to keep doing it. It's called you've got to figure it out. You've got to figure it out.
I'm sorry, but if you spend 3 months and you haven't found a single product on Amazon, you are doing something completely incorrect. Like you're sourcing incorrect. Like there is something fundamentally wrong. Maybe your expectations is way too high, and your ROI, your sourcing criteria is too high. But I find that very hard to believe, to tell you the truth. My comment is a bit harsh, but I find that so hard to believe. And your next question is how to tell a newbie to get started in the US. You should not get started in the US if you can't find a single product in the UK market.
Good cost. I think, by the way, we had a conversation about on the weekend and said like people struggle with it. And I think one of my answers was that, a lot of people right now watch Instagram, for example, and they go, I've been selling for 6 months. Why don't I have a Lamborghini? And I'm like, the expectation is so far off reality. Like that's not something that would be a realistic expectation. Like question for you, Gavin, if you were to start, how long do you think it'd be before you could buy a Lamborghini?
I don't know, maybe I can do it 2 or 3 years. So maybe after like 6 or 7 years doing Amazon.
If you took the Amazon loan that they offer you, you could probably do it in 1 year. But we're not saying that actually that's profit. That's just using other people's money. So be mindful of that. And by the way, what we're saying is buying a Lamborghini, not leasing a Lamborghini for a small, like, $3,000 a month or something. That's a very different equation. So just be mindful of that.
Is that much it costs? I thought it'd be way more expensive than 3K.
No, I know. Was it KT Hustles? His Urus, I think it is, costs $4,000 a month. It's not that expensive, honestly. Really, really interesting. What about this one? Nor says, don't the tax-free prep centers get super saturated? Why are they not saturated, Gavin?
Find one that's not saturated. Like what? So for prep centers, I go by word of mouth. I have friends recommend them to me. But yeah, of course. But here's the thing, right? So if you're doing shoes, maybe you don't want a 0% sales-free tax prep center. Maybe you want a tax state that's 0% for shoes and clothing. But then for beauty, it's like 15, 20% or 10%. So like there's always stuff you can do. It's not about the complication. It's just about the solution. It's about making it work.
Yeah,
like
I think
your question there is more on the negative side rather than the positive side. So I think that'll make it harder for yourself. So rather than ask that kind of question, it's like, okay, how do I find a good prep center that isn't saturated? That sounds better.
Yeah. I think it's also as well, people get worried about things. So I think number one is sales tax is a bit weird. So it's not it generally is a generic percentage across the board per state. But as Gavin kind of highlighted, certain states have slight nuances within the sales tax. So like the shoes might not, fashion might not be, might be a lower tax rate. Also as well, you might actually choose a state where it has a sales tax. So it might be a very low, like 1 or 2%, because they have a really good prep center with a low fee. You generally find the sales tax free states are a bit higher. Also, the other one is like, some of the tax, we have 2 prep centers that we use. They have an onboarding fee, minimum number of units, and they're quite selective about the people they work with. They're like, they don't want to be dealing with, all the annoying, like should we say, all the new beginners, and it's going to be a lot of hassle. They just want good business constantly because they have a reputation to uphold, and we've seen it whereby they go the other way and it's like a nightmare, and they have problems. But I would say that I think if you were going to make a business in the US, which isn't directly selling on Amazon, a prep center in a tax-free state would be probably a very good one in the US.
Yeah.
So # watch this space.
Just to add what you said there, Tom, as well. So if the prep center in the US does have those requirements and you don't have that, if you have the UK sales history, you can show that to them and that's fine. What they're looking for is competency. If you can show competency via your UK operations, that's fine, that's acceptable. And then tell them how much money you're investing in, and then they'll be happy to take you.
Yeah, fine. What about this one? Facebook user, I think it's Richard. What's your views on the comparison with the noise we all get as Amazon sellers? IP complaints, cease and desist letters. Does the litigation culture cause you hear about in the USA flow to Amazon selling? Do you get a lot of IP issues?
I don't really get. I do get some, but it's like I don't worry about it. I just deal with it as it happens. If I know, but the benefit of what you're saying though, right, is that noise can be very useful information. So if you hear that a certain brand is now sending cease and desist, well, now you can just send out of that brand, and then you're fine. So that's actually useful information. But all the whinging, all the complaining, I just ignore that.
Fine. Yeah, I think like by the way, like as a UK national, we do look at it and go, oh my god, the litigation culture in the US is really high, or we perceive it that way, should we say? But if I give it in perspective, we do like 1.3, I think it is. Don't quote me. We have 0 IP complaints right now on the account, and we're doing purely OA. So not like wholesale like Gavin. So, we have got them. We've got the cease and desist letters. Sometimes we've forgotten about them, like, oh my God, and then nothing happened. So I think I've probably seen maybe a bit more in the US than I have in the UK. But remember, we're doing 3 times the revenue in the UK. So, but I probably wouldn't say it's as bad as people think it is. But we do have really good ways, of fighting them, getting around them, and also kind of just being mindful of them. But obviously, we're not stupid. We're doing the due diligence on the keeper charts. We're looking at the competitors' offer. We're not buying listings where there's just one or 2 sellers on it all the time. So, I think that's the kind of the point, should we say?
Oh, I will say for Hawker 1.1. We received a cease and desist, and we ignored them for like 6 or 7 months. And their emails, the PDFs or mails, whatever, were just getting worse and worse. At the end of it, it was like, right, this is the final warning. By law, you must now retain all records relating to Hawker. You have 24 hours to delete your listings, or we are taking it to court. And they said that for like 2 or 3 months. I was like, okay, I'll delete them now. I finished selling what I got to sell. But that's kind of like risk tone. I don't recommend that. If you do get a cease and desist, find out if other people get the same thing, or find out people who've been in the game for longer than us and see what they do. Because most of cease and desists, it's just nothing but a scare tactic. But don't quote me on that.
Exactly, yeah. But you be careful, because when it costs you a lot. Because fines in the US are quite big, aren't they? Gavin definitely knows that one.
I think my 25 grand bill.
What? How much?
25k bill penalty.
20 from who?
So I got a 25k penalty from the IRS because my accountant submitted slightly wrong information. I think it was just missing a checkbox. That's it, just a checkbox.
One box.
So we got a 25k penalty that collects crazy interest that is still not yet to pay. So, but I'll be in Vietnam, so I should be safe.
No, I won't lie. Gavin did actually. You go on.
We're appealing for removal of it for a first-time abatement, and I've switched accountant. But this is why you need money to start in the US. You don't know what's going to happen. Everything's more expensive. The fees are more expensive. The risk is definitely higher, and it's key you find someone who knows what they're doing for international clients. Because I did not do that, and then I paid a 25 grand bill or being charged with.
Okay, yeah, I think just to clarify, there was basically a clerical error on a document that Gavin's accountant filed, and because of that, there was a IRS. He didn't, basically, he should have filed something. Because of the clerical error, he should have filed something, but he didn't think he should have filed it because obviously it was a clerical error, and as a result, he got a $25,000 fine, which they're fining, which is like, oh my god, like that's a lot of cash. Like in the UK, it'd be like £100. In the US, it's like a $25,000. So very, very interesting. Here's a really good question, Gavin. VAs, you've got VA, so have I. How easy did you find it switching from the UK to USA if people are looking to transfer across? Tell me about that.
Bit of a disaster. A lot of them couldn't make the switch, and a lot of them was released. But then the 2 or 3 people who did make the switch and were good got even better. So I guess it shows you how adaptable your team is, because a lot of VAs will just get used to doing the same old stuff, and then they start growing, and that's where you find out who your real star VAs are. Because your star VAs will have no problems, but like average VAs will struggle.
Yeah, agreed. And I think regardless, that's it. Like, but again, it's about motivating, encouraging them, challenging them, and and driving them towards it and helping them adapt. But I think the one thing is there is more opportunity, but also as well, there's more shiny objects. And like, even when we look at like sneakers, you've got to be careful. Like, we've done a lot of work around sneakers, so I think that's a really important point. Just had a quick look here. Facebook user, I think that's Chris. He says he's just bought the course. So if you guys are interested, just for the duration of this live right now, fasttrackfba.com/USA50. There's a link up above. You can get my step-by-step guide. It's about 20 videos, exactly what I did. Prep centers, EANs, ITINs, corporation tax structures. If you are a non-resident in the US looking to build a business in the US, you don't even have to do it right now. Just get the information. You can get half price on that. So fasttrackfba.com/USA50. It will only be available during this live. So do grab that now. And obviously you can get half price on that. So check that out. I think you're going to really like that. And again, it's everything that I've done, and we've recently updated it to really talk. We've added on, I think there's now 8 or 9 ways to overcome cancelled orders, which is the biggest problem you're going to face. I've just actually added to that video to really help you out. So Facebook user Chris, glad. I think you're going to love that. It's going to be really, really helpful. So let's kind of go through. So here we go. I hear a lot of manual sourcing is the best method, but can you give me some constructive advice on how to become more efficient of it? Gavin, you're a good sourcer.
Thing is, am I a good sourcer these days? I haven't done it so. I'm very good at
analysis.
Yeah, so the way I see it, you can be horrendous at sourcing, but very good at analysis, and that will let you see opportunities. And I see a lot of people these days where they'll use like the SAS checker. So they'll look at it in SAS, and they just look at the buy price and sell price, but you don't see the keeper graph. So that makes no sense. For every product you analyze, you always want to see the keeper graph. Even if it's on like 10% ROI, what if it will recover 2 weeks from now? Because how do you know if it's your sourcing that needs improvement or your keeper analysis needs improvement? Because you're skipping so many steps. But really, like, for sourcing, time in the game is the way forward. But if you're sourcing from websites where
and they're going to wait for it to come back up again, they're buying at the kind of market sell, the bad point in the market, because they can see what's happening on the keeper chart, and they can know that they're going to have to wait 1 or 2 weeks, and then the price is going back up again, and they're like, cool, we're happy. And it's a really good way, because all the new sellers are just buying like 30%. When it looks like 30%, by the time it gets in, it's going to be rubbish, whereas these guys are buying at like 10%, and then when it gets in, they're going up. So I think that's a really interesting point to understand. But if I kind of share some tips and tricks that I kind of identify within my own business for my team sourcing.
Can I just interrupt you first?
Go.
So another thing that I came to the conclusion of, I realized will like see mentees, is actually stress management. If you're stressed, if you're angry or pissed off, you're never going to source well. So sourcing takes a lot of time. You can't be drinking all the time or getting high. You have to look after yourself, exercise, and source with a clear mind. Because if you're stressed and you get stressed after 20 minutes, then your entire sourcing session is going to be almost useless.
Yeah, agreed. It's like going to the gym with a massive, I don't know, it's like I don't know. You know, like when you try to go to the gym hungover or something, you just don't do anything because, like, you'd been better not doing it. So, like, you've got to be in the right state of mind. Get your mindset in the right place is really, really important.
Yeah.
I love this. 1 second. So I will. I love it. We've got. Someone else has just brought the course. Absolutely love it. If you guys want to grab the course, we've been on for an hour now. I will finish up in a minute. Get it up there. It's going to be live for the period of the time. fasttrackfba.com/50. So I'm just going to fasttrackfba.com/USA50. USA50. Get that right. That's my exact step-by-step guide. So do grab that. I will just kind of come through is the things that I kind of talked about with my team because I think it'd be quite helpful, regardless of the UK or USA. Is storefront stalking. Look at your competitors. What are they doing? The products they're selling. You know, so long as that storefront you're stalking is in the same niche as you are. If they're really broad, generic is not going to work. But if they're doing sneakers and you're looking at them, that can give you some really good ideas. Refining your process, understanding, like doing your analysis. Gavin looks at 100 keeper charts a day. That's like he's really refining that analysis process. Specialize in a niche. By the way, like even sneakers is absolutely huge. Why don't you just do certain types of brands in certain things?
We do one brand. We do one brand, and if we wanted to, you can do one brand up to like almost $1 million a month or more. Like,
it's crazy, isn't it? And I think the interesting thing is like, don't just do sneakers. Do like sneakers, one brand, maybe like just the woman's size, because you really understand those graphs. You understand the return rates. You understand the buyer persona. You understand everything. I even do.
Wait, hold on. If you're doing men's sneakers or women's sneakers, do bloody men's. It's got low return rate.
There we go. Gavin's sharing the secret sauce.
Yeah.
Secret sauce there, Gavin. I think the other one is always evaluate your purchases, you know, your sales. That's so important. Why? Because you've got to be looking at what's working, what's not, and why, asking questions. You know, again, I think, by the way, I even said to my team, I was like, by the way, guys, stop even worrying about sourcing for new products. Just focus on trying to keep your existing products in stock more. What could you do to get more of your items in stock? Where should you have bought bigger that you didn't? And how could you have seen that beforehand? That's a really important one. Negotiate suppliers, wholesale. Gavin's doing that really successfully now. And even profitability, holding your price. I think that's a really, really important point. And then the final one we do here is like data, understanding data, analyzing keeper charts, review. So important.
The problem is, Tom, with this advice is that we're giving so much advice here, it's all going to go over his head. So it's, yeah.
Well, like, maybe they can watch it back.
Watch it back. Pick one or two pieces and stick to that.
Yeah,
and then just focus on that.
Fantastic. I got another comment come through here. Someone mentioned in the course, I mentioned a prep center in Delaware, fantastic, and also one in Florida. I interviewed a few months ago. By the way, like regardless, like the one in Florida, which is Ava, I think it is. Ava, she's brilliant. Like I really liked it. But again, like Florida has like some prep. It has some what's it called? Tax things. Now there are ways to get around certain bits, but like it's really up to you. Like I think coming back to prep centers, like I know a lot of sellers who will actually choose a prep center in a taxable state because the prep center is just so good and they're willing to pay more. But also as well, what they realize is the prep center itself actually charges lower per unit. So where their price, like where they're buying and the way they operate, and even if you do like Gavin wholesale, for example, you don't care about tax-free states because it doesn't make a difference because you don't pay sales tax because you're doing B2B transaction. It's really when you're doing, should we say, consumer websites shipping to your prep center, that's when you'll pay the sales tax. So really for you, the idea is the fact that you yes, sales tax free states prep centers really help, but you don't have to only do that. There's a lot of other options you can think about. And I do like the one in Florida that I went and met. I think she's really good and she's got really positive reviews. So absolutely fantastic. I will just kind of wrap it up there. Obviously, just if you guys want to get that course, fasttrackfba.com/USA50, you can grab that off. That's going to be 50% off. I will literally leave it up for a few more minutes after this. If you want to grab it, get that. That's going to be the exact step-by-step guide for should I say what I did in my USA business. So I hope that's going to help you out. Gavin, any final kind of comments before we finish up there? Appreciate your time and thank you for sharing all your knowledge and well done on your success.
That's all right. So I've been at Amazon now for 3.5 years. Amazon won't get you rich quick, but it can give you a very good quality of life if you keep at it and stay very persistent. Like, and that's what we care about, right? We care about a life that is like a degree of freedom to what we care about. And I think Amazon can definitely provide that. But like, you can never really take time off. If you take like 2 weeks off, then your business will always suffer. So especially during your learning phase, you just got to spend as much time as possible. The more time you spend on Amazon, the more money you make. It's that simple.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed.
And I think don't see it as a side hustle. Don't see it as a side hustle. Just see it as your main business straight away and take it serious from the get-go.
What you put in is what you'll get out of it. That's it. And you've got to focus. It's so easy to make mistakes, and it's so easy not to learn from those mistakes and do it. And I think data is key. Coming back to Gavin, 3 years, 2 times 7-figure Amazon seller, UK and USA, still analyzing 100 keeper charts a day. I think that's kind of something you need to consider. So just be mindful of that. Even with VAs and you've got a team and all that, like, you've still got to be like looking at the information. There are ways you can get it down lower, but I think I say to everyone, and I said it to other business owners, is that wherever there are people and processes, you always have to do some work. Nothing's ever passive. But you can reduce the work down, but it will never be zero. So don't think of it that way. But my God, like Gavin, we have a business that allows us to travel the world, meet cool people, earn great money, and we never have to handle products. And I think that's so amazing. So, I just want to say thank you for sharing that, and and obviously well done on your journey. If you are enjoying this, 2 things. Number 1, hit the like button. I like that. We're going to wrap it up now. But number 2, Gavin.
Wait, there's one good question. There's a really good question here.
Go on. What's the good question?
Do you have any advice on running both marketplaces whilst making the transition? This is okay. So I can tell you what not to do. This is what ended my UK team. So I tried to do this. I tried to move half of my UK VAs over to the USA, but I moved the best VAs over. So then my purchase manager was left with targets, and then all the best VAs gone. So she's extremely stressed. She can't handle her job anymore. And I'm like, why aren't we hitting our spend targets? And it's all my fault. So really, like, if you're gonna start on the USA, your UK is going to be neglected. So what I would say is have a fresh team, or if you have like a team of 6, just maybe move over one person. That's it, no more. Just move over one person, get them to help you run it, and then your UK needs to be mostly outsourced, because while you're building up the USA, you are going to be neglecting the UK if you have to work on it a lot.
Yeah, I agree. I think, by the way, like, that's not even about that. It's like if you think you can run 2 businesses at a time, at the same capacity, it's not going to happen. Like, I ran 3, and and I paid the price for that. Like, there's a lot to do in the UK to get it to where it needs to be, and I ultimately said I don't think I want to do that. Even now I have 2, and it's still one hell of a lot of work. So I think for you is you need to make sure that if you do want to do both businesses, like Gavin said, like, one, your business is running really, really efficiently without you. Effectively, time is the important thing. So I think 5 to 10 hours a week, if you can do that one business, then you're okay to start the second one full time. So I think that's fantastic. So yeah, Gavin, thank you for that. If everyone's getting in contact with you, what's the best way?
Twitter. My Twitter is Gavin Sweeney, 2 Y's at the end. Oh, I'm also on Facebook, Gavin Sweeney there as well.
No, we can see you. We can see you. So obviously Tom A has just purchased the course as well. So if you guys want to get it, last chance now, fasttrackfba.com/USA50. You can just see it up there. Grab that. Obviously you can get that. And that's my step-by-step guide. Gavin's got that. It's been really helpful as well.
Yeah, I did. We also have a podcast, Amazon FBA Nomads. You can search for it on YouTube. It is me, Tom, and Seth Becker.
Absolutely.
All about Amazon and traveling the world. Yeah.
Exactly. We should do that in the car on the way down to Acapulco on Friday. That'd be hilarious.
We could do. You could do like a live video recording, like.
Exactly. I know. Right. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a real pleasure. Gavin, thank you so much for your time. If you guys have enjoyed this, hit the like button. I just want to say a big thank you to all of you for joining, all of your questions. Hopefully you found this interesting and understand that there is no right or wrong answer between Amazon UK and USA. It depends on your situation. But my God, regardless of what marketplace you're in, there is a lot of opportunity. And hopefully you've now got a much better vision about, if you do want to take advantage of it, what that looks like, and if that's going to be right for you, and if not right now, where that's going to be. So do think about getting the course. If you are thinking about doing it, it might not be right now, but even if just in the future, that information will always be updated. We keep it updated with what we're learning. But for myself and everyone here, Gavin, thank you so much for your time, and for myself and Gavin, to everyone here, thank you for all the questions and obviously spending your time and your day to listen to us and learn about Amazon UK versus USA. But hey, let's go and enjoy Mexico, Gavin. Bye.
I got some food arriving. Cheers, guys. Bye bye.